Over the years, Gustavo Petro has become a strong proponent for liberal, progressive, and green proposals within his country of Colombia. The lifelong politician has faced death threats throughout his life, which has not swayed him in his beliefs and what he believes he can do for his country. Though his beliefs and platforms have come under fire for years, upsetting the status quo has been second nature to Colombia's newest president. How does a guerrilla fighter and ex-rebel of the 1980s rise to political power under radical, progressive ideas, ready to change the systems currently in power? How did President Gustavo Petro get to where he is? Welcome to Neapolitan. Today we'll be looking at Gustavo Petro, a Colombian economist, politician, former guerrilla fighter, and the current president-elect of Colombia. He'll take office in August of 2022 as Colombia's first leftist president, after having served as a senator, mayor of Bogotá, and a member of the Chamber of Representatives during his political career. We're going to dive into where he's from, how he got here, and look at the man he is today. We'll look at it broken down into three unique sections, like Neapolitan ice cream, the vanilla, the who, what, where, and when of the folks that changed the world, chocolate, that flavor punch, controversy and adversity make lives so interesting, and the strawberry, the lasting legacy and lick that all Neapolitan lives come with. If you're interested in other videos like this or different in-depth looks at essential people throughout history, make sure you're subscribed to the channel with post notifications, hence you never miss a single one. Without further ado, let's get into it. Vanilla. Born in 1960 Ciénaga de Oro, Cordoba, Gustavo Petro was a descendant of Francesco Petro from southern Italy. He was raised Catholic and stated he has a vision of God from libertarian theology. However, he has also questioned God's existence. In search of more opportunity, his family migrated to Zipaquirá, a more prosperous town island north of Bogotá. He studied at the Colegio de Hermanos de la Salle, where while attending he founded the student newspaper, Carta al Pueblo, which means letter to the people. Petro then graduated with a degree in economics from the Universidad Externado de Colombia, beginning his studies for a graduate degree at the Escuela Superior de Administración Pública. Petro traveled later to Belgium for his graduate studies in economics and human rights, and began studying toward his doctoral degree in public administration in Spain at the University of Salamanca. At just 17, he became a member of the 19th April Movement, a Colombian guerrilla organization movement. The movement emerged in 1974 in opposition to the National Front coalition after allegations of fraud in the 1970s election. In 1985, the army arrested Petro for illegal possession of arms. Convicted, Petro faced an 18-month sentencing. During this time, his ideology shifted, and he no longer believed armed resistance was a feasible strategy for public backing. Subsequently, in 1987, M19 began peace talks with the government. After the M19 movement's demobilization, former members, including Petro, formed a political party. This was called the M19 Democratic Alliance and won significant seats in the 1991 Chamber of Representatives, representing the Department of Cundinamarca. Petro met with Lieutenant Colonel Hugo Chavez, who'd recently been released from prison following his role in the February 1992 Venezuelan coup. This was partly due to an event on Bolivarian thought at the Simón Rodríguez Cultural Foundation in Bogotá. In 2002, he was elected at the Chamber of Representatives for Bogotá as a member of the Via Alterna political movement, which was formed with former M19 members including Antonio Navarro Wolf. He was named Best Congressman by the press and his Congress colleagues. He created, along with his party, an electoral coalition to form the Independent Democratic Pole, fusing with the Alternativa Democrática in 2005 to form the Alternative Democratic Pole. Petro mobilized the second highest voter turnout in the country, which elected him to the Senate in 2006. He was concurrently involved in exposing the parapolitics scandal, which accused members and followers of the government of their efforts to reclaim Colombia while working and mingling with paramilitary groups. Then Senator Petro opposed the government of Álvaro Uribe vehemently. He denounced the lottery businesswoman and Nils Lopez in 2005 as a member of the Chamber of Representatives. She was imprisoned in 2009 under investigation for her ties to the now disbanded United Self-Defense Forces of Colombia paramilitary group. Petro alleged that they had financially contributed to the campaign of Álvaro Uribe in 2002, which caused Uribe to refute these statements initially. However, during his 2006 re-election campaign, he admitted to receiving financial support from Nils Lopez. Chocolate. Petro was outspoken, beginning debates on the parapolitics scandal. He began a public verbal dispute with President Uribe when Petro suggested the president should have recused himself in the talks of Colombian paramilitaries and their demobilization. It was following accusations that Uribe's own brother, Santiago Uribe, was a former 12 Apostles paramilitary group leader in the 1990s. President Uribe, in turn, accused Petro of being a terrorist in civilian clothing and called him to summon the opposition to an open debate. Petro reported frequent death threats against his family and himself and continued persecution by government-run organizations. In 2007, the Colombian army captured 2 Colombian army intelligence officers who had been spying on Petro and his family in Tenjo, Cundinamarca. They identified themselves initially as members of the Departamento Administrativo Seguridad of the Colombian intelligence agency. However, later their claims were denied by the director of the agency, Andrés Peñate. He announced his interest in presidential candidacy for the 2010 election in 2008. He'd begun to distance himself from government policies. He led a distancing faction with Lucho Garzón and Maria Emma Mejia within the alternative Democratic pole. He proposed a Great National Accord to end Colombia's war. This would focus on removing organized crime from power, cleaning up the judicial system, democratic socialism, land reform, and a security policy that differed considerably from then-President Uribe. In 2009, Petro defeated Carlos Gaviria in a primary election as the candidate for the alternative Democratic pole. The election was held on the 30th of May 2010, and Petro did better than polls initially predicted. He had 9.1% of the total, with 1,331,267 votes, and finished behind Germán Vargas Lleras as the 4th candidate. Petro became mayor of Bogotá between 2012 and 2014, and 2014 to 2015. He enacted measures like the prohibition on carrying firearms, leading to a reduction in homicide rates. Interventions were carried out by the police, seizing guns and weapons, and the overall rates reached the lowest in the last 20 years. The Women's Secretariat and the LGBTI Citizen Center were created. 49 different centers for birth control and abortion care were created for cases permitted by law. Petro banned bullfighting, though his measure was later fought and rejected by the Constitutional Court. He proposed a policy to conserve Bogotá's wetlands, planning to preserve water in the face of global warming, with plans to plant over 200,000 trees. He led a suppression effort of animal-drawn vehicles being used by waste pickers, which put many out of work. However, some were replaced with automatic cars. His proposed application of the integrated public transport system began in mid-2012, during Petro's administration. He then started drafting plans for constructing a subway for the city. These plans were scrapped by his successor, opting instead for an elevated railway with an allegedly lower investment and better coverage. However, these claims have been refuted by independent studies, which found that the economic and social cost would be higher than the underground system planned by Petro's administration. During his time as mayor, Petro faced a recall process by the opposition party, supported by the signatures of over 600,000 citizens. 375,250 signatures were then validated, which was more than the legal minimum to start the process. Petro was then removed from his seat, with an in-place 15-year ban from political activity, following sanctions stipulated by laws. This was allegedly caused by mismanagement and illegal decrees signed during his waste collection system implementation. Despite the granted injunction by the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights suspending the sanctions, Petro's removal from office was upheld by President Juan Santos. Santos appointed Rafael Pardo as mayor. However, a 2014 magistrate from the Superior Tribunal of Bogotá preferred the president to obey the Inter-American Commission's recommendations, and Petro was reinstated as mayor. In 2018, Gustavo Petro was once again a presidential candidate, with a campaign run by publicists Luis Fernando Pardo, Alberto Cienfuegos, and Ángel Becasino. Petro's right-wing opponent filed a lawsuit against him with allegations of fraud and bribery. Petro ran his platform emphasizing public banking, universal health care, a rejection of fracking and mining expansion, land reform, and the investments in clean energy. Petro took second place with 8 million votes, after which he returned to the Senate. He received numerous death threats from the paramilitary group Aguilas Negros, adding to the long list he had accumulated throughout his career. In 2021, Petro announced his decision to run for the presidential election again, stating this would be his last attempt and refusing to be an eternal candidate. Once again, his platform promoted green energy over fossil fuels, as well as a decrease in economic inequality. Petro claimed he wished to focus on climate change and reduce greenhouse gas emissions by ending fossil fuel exploration. He proposed an agrarian reform to help restore productivity to the land, halt new oil exploration, water access infrastructure, and a rail network development. He pledged to invest in research and public education, reform taxes, and reform the privatized health systems. Strawberry. As president-elect, Petro's policies will come into play in August 2022. However, he has a strong and progressive track record and plans in play. With events in the world, a positive light has shone on the Colombian response. In 2020, in response to the COVID-19 crisis, a comprehensive set of public health measures were put forth to help stop the spread of disease, along with a sizable financial package to help strengthen the health system's capacity and help limit the social and economic fallout. They also stood with Ukraine and rejected the Russian attacks and threats. Though across oceans, Colombia was quick to reiterate its solidarity with Ukraine, as they condemned the suffering of its people. Their plan included sending Colombian Air Force planes to Ukraine borders to help process the departure of Colombian nationals. At the time, there were 298 Colombians in Ukraine, with 31 family members. Efforts to reduce crude oil and focus on planting trees, combating global warming, and strengthening clean energy alternatives have always been on Petro's platform, no matter what political office he's run for. This has manifested in efforts to cut fracking down and stop relying on coal or oil as a power source. This has put the president-elect under harsh criticism, as it upsets the current coal and oil investors. However, the nation's struggle with ongoing deforestation has long since been a sticking point for Petro. Time will have to show how the new administration will handle these changes. Petro's beliefs, proposed policies, and track record are currently consistent on paper, but not yet put into play. If you like this video and want to see more like it, then make sure you leave a like, so we know what you think and can continue to bring you the kind of videos you want to see. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the material we've shown, or other videos like this. Check out the other videos on this channel for fascinating looks into historical figures like this. Until next time, this has been Neapolitan, and we'll see you around.